During this episode at Disconnection, we will be speaking to Chris Hammill, who will share with us real and relatable stories covering a range of topics from his unique perspective. Chris, how are you doing today?
I can't complain. Thanks for having me, guys.
We're so happy to have you on the show. Chris, do you think you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, in a nutshell, my day job is working at Sirius XM Satellite Radio, and I also freelance audio production, and I don't want to say veteran podcaster, but 10 plus years I've been podcasting here and there.
I'd call that veteran. That's experience.
Yeah, especially compared to us who have, a couple of months on this.
I just want to somehow inflate my ego a little bit, say veteran, saying I'm above people. Nah.
We'll puff it up for you too.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
You got it. Pump,
No,
pump,
but
pump.
10 plus years I've been podcasting here and there, various projects, working with various people, and I've been involved with media for the past, I want to say 10 years, a little over 10 years now. Time flies.
That is awesome, man. I was checking out your YouTube page. I checked out your website a little bit. I actually love
the outdated website that I need to desperately remodel.
You got to do what you got to do. But the thing I saw on your YouTube page, and I wish you did more of these because this was great, was new reviews for old movies.
That was actually a throwaway. That was a throwaway video to satisfy a couple of my friends because on one of my old shows, there was a running gag that I've never seen a lot of classic movies, like movies where you would say oh my God, you've never seen The Godfather, which
right.
I totally have, by the way. But like Demolition Man, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, all RoboCop. Only a few years ago, I saw the original RoboCop for the first time. So it was a running gag on the show where we compiled a list of 100 classic movies I've never seen, and I've always had the list of movies where everyone would look at it, and somewhere down the line, I'm like, wait for it. You've never fucking seen this, So that was basically a throwaway movie, and one of my friends made the suggestion, oh, you should totally make a new review for movies that everyone knows. So you've seen it for the first time, so is it still good, or are we just brainwashed with nostalgia?
Right.
And the first one was Demolition Man, and I've been meaning to make a new one for Fargo because I haven't seen that one, and it's just a lot of time is spent doing a lot of other things other than making videos. And you guys know from making videos and projects and all that stuff, it takes so much time and effort to do it. And I'm like a one-man band here. So
Right.
I got to start making more of those, but I'm glad you guys liked it. Everyone I've showed the video to, they've all have been really positive about it.
It was fun. Yeah, man. I had some good laughter. I was wondering, what was that Dennis Leary quote from? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, well,
Where'd you pull that?
One of his first albums, he did a song called Asshole. And basically how, if you wanted to take how people react on YouTube comments these days and just put it into song form, that was Dennis Leary in the mid-90s.
Oh, my God.
And in Demolition Man, when you first get to know him, he was like, I just want styrofoam cheeseburgers, all that stuff. I want to pollute the earth or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I remember hearing that before in his Asshole song. And it was right around the time where that album came out. So I'm like, oh, I see what you did there, Dennis. First you take Bill Hicks's act, and now you're rehashing your own stuff. That's great, Dennis.
Yeah, that was an interesting cut. I found it very funny, too. It was just funny watching Leary even pound out that line. But, all right, so you've done a few videos on your YouTube page. I know you work at Sirius XM right now, right?
Right.
How did some of your audio engineering work and some of these YouTubes that you've done lead into your job at Sirius XM?
It was a happy accident, honestly. Growing up in high school, I actually wanted to be a police detective, which is kind of way out of left field how I got involved with media. It was like when you grow up and you take those personality tests and they determine what career is supposed to be. Every single time I took one of those, it was police detective, specifically homicide.
And he's wearing a Batman shirt right now.
Exactly,
guys.
World's Greatest Detective. So but every personality test I took, it said that I'm meant to be a police officer or detective or something because I'm very my attention to details, almost OCD. I like to review facts when I research anything. I like to be very detail oriented, and I went to school for the first time after graduating high school in 2004, and I got involved with the college radio station. I was like, fuck being a police officer. This is awesome. I have I have a direct path to be a police officer. Get involved with the police force and make a great living being a cop. And I want to get involved in radio. Like no one wants to get involved with radio. Like no one these days wants to get involved with radio because the job market is just so cutthroat and so competitive. It's like it's the fucking Hunger Games to get a job in radio.
Right.
And but I loved it. I fell in love with it the first time I popped on a microphone and played like my first song, like doing my first metal show, and that was in the fall of 2004. And since then, I've been like, it's been a landslide, honestly, of just like satisfaction and just constant chasing of a goal.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm finally at a point where I'm making decent money doing something I love. And it all started with a happy accident. Like I met a few of my best friends at the college radio station. I got involved with it. And yeah, it's been a roller coaster since then of many ups and many downs.
What was the college radio show like about originally?
It was just me playing most of the music that I liked. I liked a lot of Scandinavian metal bands that no one's heard of here. I would like to say I like there's this one band called Him, which if you know Bam Margera, all the people of Bam stuff back then, he's obsessed with this band.
Right.
I would like to say that I've known about these bands that Bam Margera likes before him. Like he's a total piece of shit, this guy, but like one thing that I've always admired about him was his taste in music. And I played a lot of unique metal bands that no one in the U.S. has heard of. Like I was the first one at the school to play Rammstein on the music station.
Coming in hot.
Yeah.
And no one's heard of them. They think I was playing like some Hitler Youth metal band or something. So first day on the job, I got in a little bit of trouble because I was playing a band that everyone thought was saying like horrendously like Hail Hitler things, but. Really,
shows
it was
that
just,
everybody at the college was being racist, honestly. Thinking German people are just yelling Nazi gibberish.
Yeah, I got in trouble for that, but most of the time, like if you actually translate Rammstein songs, it's actually very nice and very like positively political, something like that. There's one song where they translate, where if you translate it, it's talking about like the oil crisis and gasoline, but it sounds like you could put some really offensive shit behind it, and you're like,
right.
oh, this music is meant to promote that. But no, I don't know how I got off track here, but
no, it's free form.
But mostly, like I just played a lot of foreign metal bands that no one in the U.S. has heard of. That was the concept of my show, and then I got involved with talk. I mean, I grew up idolizing the likes of Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony, and a lot. Like my first radio love was actually a man named Chris Booker, and he used to be on K-Rock here back in New York. I want to say in the late 90s, early 2000s, and he hosted a show where if you listen to it, it sounds like Howard Stern with a little bit more PG-13-ish type of humor. But it was my exposure to talk radio, and I fell in love with him. I fell in love with the talk radio format, and I listened to it every single day. And listening to Howard in the morning, Opie and Anthony afternoon, Booker at night, it was like I was glued to the radio every single moment of every day, and that's all I wanted to do since then. And
maybe you'll know which one this is then. When I was younger, I used to listen to talk radio as I was going to sleep, and I don't remember specifically who it was, but they would always have like these sex talks. And it would happen after like 10 p.m. and I'd turn on my radio, I'd put it next to my bed, I'd put it on, low so my parents couldn't hear.
Was it like Loveline or something like that?
Maybe, and people would call in and give like their sex experiences. Was it Loveline?
Was it that old lady talking and like explaining to them, or am I thinking of something completely different?
No,
there was
like
a show called Loveline where they had a sex therapist host a show, and you get to talk about your love life with her or something like that, like Dr. Ruth or something like that. It was like an 80, 90-year-old woman hosting it. But yeah, I grew up listening to. When I first started listening to Howard Stern, I was like, how the hell is he getting away with all this on the radio?
Right.
Like, this is the coolest guy I ever heard in my life. And then I started listening to Opie and Anthony, and I was hearing Opie, Anthony, and comic Jim Norton talk about a lot of things that Howard was doing. But then when I found out that Howard, like, the whole story of Howard going behind the scenes and banning people from talking about him, it's like, as a free speech advocate and like someone who wants to really get involved with, like, protecting the First Amendment, hearing Howard ban people from talking about him, I'm like, dude, like what a bitch move, man.
Yeah.
Like this is the guy that many people grew up idolizing, and here you are just like literally censoring anyone from talking about you. It's just it was a real like heartbreaking moment for me.
It's effed up, I agree, and I totally think that First Amendment rights should be respected, and Howard is honestly just being a baby, but it's so in line with his character. After, I'm sure after you've watched and listened to his show, he's kind of a bitch when it comes to that kind of stuff. He doesn't like being talked about behind his back. You know?
Not at all.
That's not
his... it's the thing that's serious now. I mean, it's Howard has his entire wing. If you ever go into Sirius, if you go the main entrance to the right, the entire half of the building is Howard. And me as an employee, I don't even have access to it. Like,
really?
I can't even get in. And there was a whole public incident with Opie before he got fired. He snuck into, and this was on his YouTube page, so it's not like I'm saying anything secret here. You go into Opie's YouTube page, and there's a video of him walking into Howard's wing of the building with Sherrod Small, the comedian. And he pretended to be an employee there inside Howard's wing, and the cleaning lady let him in. And it was just him walking around the building, inside Howard's wing. And that turned into an entire shitstorm. Like, wow. I cannot begin to tell you how controversial that was, because everyone in Howard's wing was just livid at that, because Howard and Opie have been at each other's throats for literally decades now.
Right.
And I'm not saying that that's one of the reasons why Opie was fired, but that's one of the reasons that Sirius was just like at their wits' end with Opie. Like when they fired Anthony, I saw the end game. I saw everything that was going on before, like it was all publicized. Like I'm like, oh, Sirius doesn't want this anymore. They're tired of this. They chose Howard as their guy, and they're bending all on Howard.
Right.
And you mess with Howard, that's it. You're done, and you're on the list. Wow, so Chris Jericho here. You made Sirius's list.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. I mean, it's not good stuff, but have you ran into Howard around Sirius XM?
When I was an intern in 2014, I showed up day one bright and early, and Howard was just leaving the day, and he had his army of security following him to his elevator. He has his own private elevator, by the way. So,
what year is this, by the way? When did you start?
2014, summer 2014.
When did he do the cleanup? When did he, like, half his staff is gone now that weren't there? Like, is Sal and Brian and all those guys there anymore?
For the most part, a lot of this staff is still there. I know Gary's still there. Gary's an amazing guy. Like, if you ever get a chance to talk to him and pick his brain, he's a really nice guy. But Howard was leaving for the day, and he saw, like, he's like a shark. He smelt new blood because all of us were wearing our ID tags, like, hi, my name is whatever. And he introduced himself to the interns, which, according to someone else I talked to, like, he never does this anymore. Like, he never, like, greets interns that he doesn't need to greet unless you specifically work for him. But he greeted everybody, shook everyone's hand, and was like, welcome to Sirius. Hope you guys do great. And he went off. So for the briefs, I never get starstruck. I never get that, like, oh my God. I never get that anxiety, but shaking his hand and having him speak directly to me, I was like, oh my God, it's like Jesus just rose from the dead and talked to me. It was that, and I want to say the only other time at Sirius where I ever, honest to God, got starstruck was when I met Mick Fleetwood. Even that was just a couple of weeks ago.
God damn, dude.
For those of you younglings who don't know who Mick Fleetwood is, just research Fleetwood Mac and listen to Rumors, and you'll fall in love in a heartbeat.
One of the best albums of all time.
Not one of the. But Mick Fleetwood was there promoting his memoir book and doing a town hall. A town hall at Sirius is like if they invite a guest to come in, and they have usually a live studio audience, and they pre-tape an interview. So Mick was doing there promoting his memoirs and a town hall. And I was getting my morning coffee, and I saw him in the kitchen. I immediately recognized him because he's, first off, 1,000,000 feet high, and he has that recognizable ponytail. So I'm like, oh, holy shit, it's Mick Fleetwood. And being like a Fleetwood Mac and music fan, I was like, oh, dear sweet Jesus. Like, this is the guy. Like, this is a rock god right in front of me. So as I'm getting my tea, I do my best to not look like a creepy stalker. Like, I know who he is, and he knows that I know who he is. So we kind of just lock eyes briefly, and I said to him, Mick, just want to say I'm a big fan. I grew up, my mother introduced me to your music, and I just want to say, and I totally fanboy. I was like, Rumors is the greatest album of all time. Like, I love it. I listen to it at least once a day. And he just smiled because, like, here's a fat guy telling him that, like, he worships his music. If I was, like, some hot young chick, I'm sure he would have been, like, a little more nicer. But he just smiled, nodded, and said, "Hey, thanks, man." Tapped me on the shoulder and walked away. I was like, "Oh my god!"
You didn't get an autograph?
No, that's one thing at Sirius. Like, I meet all these people and I like handshakes, say hello, be nice, and be courteous, but no bueno with pictures and
for photo
and photos unless they're specifically for my channel. That's like sort of an unsung rule at Sirius. Unless the guest is specifically your channel, like, you don't interfere with other people's business. Like, Green Day was over there. I got to shake hands with Billy Joe Armstrong and talk to him. I shared an elevator ride down with them. Nice. They were coming in for Howard's show one night, and they did sound check the night before, and I was just leaving, and I was not done with my work yet, but I saw them going for the elevator, so I'm like, oh my god, this is my one chance to meet them. So I ran out of my office, shared the elevator with them, and I was like, I grew up with you guys, and just totally fanboyed.
Yeah.
You guys, your music helped guide me through, like, my childhood and whatnot. And Mike Dirnt, without missing a beat, was like, way to make us fucking feel old. So that was that was good, and made me feel a little rude, pointing out like, hey, you guys are old as shit now.
Right.
But meeting Green Day was probably another one of my most favorite moments. But the best moment of meeting celebrities by far is when Channing Tatum was in the studio, and Jonah Hill was with him, and this is when they were promoting 22 Jump Street. And Channing Tatum, Channing Tatum is the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life.
Damn.
He was just recently topped by Cristiano Ronaldo from Real Madrid. Like, he was in just the other day, and like, Ronaldo was wearing a suit so tight you can literally see his abs in his suit jacket, and he was just. I had to do a triple take. Like, I'm not gay in any sense, but I was looking at Ronaldo and I was like, my goodness, like, this is the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life. Sorry to my girlfriend who's listening in the green room, but Ronaldo, I was like, I would literally just like bend down, like, okay, have at it, whatever you want, Ronaldo. You are
oh my god,
you are so gorgeous. I would in a heartbeat. But when Channing Tatum was there, I said to him, Not to be too personal or anything, but like, I now know why, like, my wife wants to leave me for you. And this is the time I was married. And he was like, oh, no worries. If I was a gay chubby chaser, I would totally date you.
Damn.
So I got Channing Tatum to sort of jokingly hit on me. So that was probably.
Or maybe seriously hit on you. We're not sure.
Maybe. I mean, there's rumors that he's bisexual. So
either way,
you never know.
Sport for sure.
But those are some of these celebrity interaction stories at Sirius. It's a perk of the job.
Would you say you have a terrible celebrity interaction story as opposed to those ones? Not that those are bad at all. But.
Not at Sirius, but at conventions, I've had a few crazy interactions. Like, there was one time where William Shatner was at Comic-Con, and I waited online.
Star Trek.
By the way, how was Star Trek Discovery to
I
you
didn't
guys?
see it.
It was very.
It's hit or miss, right?
Yeah.
Like,
was the main character shit, or was that just me, Michael?
It's not that good.
Yeah.
Like, I watched the first couple of episodes and I'm like, yeah, I want to like it. I really want to, but it's funny when the Orville is a better Star Trek show than Star Trek Discovery.
I was saying the same thing, man. It's got those bright looks, reminds me of TNG a little bit,
right?
And you're just like, this is good stuff right
here. The Orville is the most wonderful love child of Family Guy and The Next Generation. It's a love letter. I mean, Seth MacFarlane just looks awkward in any live-action shoot that he does.
He's not a good actor.
I expect him to voice characters or be the voice of a teddy bear, but anything Seth MacFarlane personally is in, he's just a horrible live-action actor. But the way that the Orville is structured, even my dad is the biggest Star Trek fan I've ever known in my life, and I even showed him the pilot of the Orville, and he's like, yeah, I like this. So, well, I pay attention to the fan scores on Rotten Tomatoes, and the fan scores on Star Trek Discovery, garbage.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the Orville's like it's like a 90 fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes from the fans. So I'm like, I'll pay attention to those guys more than the critics.
I'll say that the Orville, it wasn't like a 10 out of 10 hit for me, but it was definitely an enjoyable show to watch. There were some jokes that fell a little flat, but I was like, this is fun. Like, I'll watch more episodes of this, you know? and it was a good looking. I mean, the production of it was awesome. That was what really I was like, why can't Discovery's really going for that Kelvinverse, that J.J. Abrams like Star Trek look. They have a lot of those cinematic angles while they're shooting, and
the production value is amazing. It's just
is.
With anything in visual, like with anything in film, TV, like you can visually make it amazing and you can make it sound amazing. Like as an audio engineer, you can make things sound amazing, but if it's shit, it's shit.
Shit.
Like it's a thing. Like good musician equals good performance.
If it's shit, it's shit. Did you get to see Inhumans at all?
I did not get to see it yet.
Are you interested in it at all?
I've been meaning to watch it, and you could totally spoil it for me. I don't care.
I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'll say that the production of it is legitimate garbage. Like, it was hot garbage.
Really?
Yeah, they were trying to emphasize the IMAX cameras in the first shot and, like, the shitty slow-mos of, like, guns firing and rain droplets hitting, which sounds like the most cliche fucking opening to IMAX movie, to show off our cameras. And then from there, like, cuts into the opening sequence, and you're like, man, I know this is going to be garbage.
Hey guys, we're going to take a quick little break here and give a big thank you to our sponsor, the Blockchain Academy. They let us use their studio and their equipment, and they teach you all about blockchain technology. You can check them out online. They have world-class instructors, and they're going to teach you how to use blockchain. So we just want to say thank you to them again, and let's get back to the show.
The last piece of IMAX I saw was actually Dunkirk.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you guys have seen Dunkirk yet, but I have very open ways that I will watch. But I don't know how to word that right. I have a very low threshold of like what I would be entertained by. Like if it involves space shit, I'll go see it. Anything involving space and NASA, I'll go see. If it involves World War II, I will immediately see it, even if I hate it. And if it involves like guns and explosions, like I'll go see it. I'm a very simple guy when it comes to what movies I'm interested in, but I actually spent the extra money to see Dunkirk in IMAX because I'm a big fan of the way Chris Nolan directs his movies and the way he sound mixes everything and the way Hans Zimmer just scores it. And they're geniuses. They are. I don't throw out that G word a lot, but Chris Nolan and Hans Zimmer are bona fide geniuses. And I saw Dunkirk in IMAX, and it was truly one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. And there's hardly any dialogue. He managed to make an hour-and-a-half long movie with maybe 20 lines of dialogue.
Wow.
But you saw like all the fear, the not sure if you're going to die that day or not. Always afraid that the Germans are just going to bombard the beach and storm the beaches. And he managed to make me afraid for these characters in a way that Saving Private Ryan never could. I mean, I saw Saving Private Ryan is one of my all-time favorite movies, but it's very more character-oriented. Like, you care about the characters. You don't know... You learn about their life story and you learn what they're in the war for. Dunkirk, it's like... I know you have a life elsewhere, but I'm afraid that you're going to die on this beach. I'm afraid you're not going to get away from here. I'm afraid you're not going to get to safety. And everyone, even Harry Styles was like, he blew me away with how good he was in this movie. And Dunkirk was the last movie where I was like, okay, that is a Marvel masterpiece of a movie. Like, I don't like critiquing movies. I don't like to go about like how things are made, the production value of it. But Dunkirk was a movie where I was just like, oh man. Like,
you have a history though with audio engineering, and so you are kind of allowed to critique that movie. And I mean, when I go to movies now, I similarly to how you jumped into audio engineering, I jumped into videography. So I didn't spend a lot of time in it, and I got out of it pretty quickly in about a year. But your time as an audio engineer allows you to go to those movies and be like, you know what, this is really nice. Like, this production value is really nice. And I'd like to know a little bit more about how you started in audio engineering.
Again, just like my how I got involved with almost everything in my life was a happy accident. Like, this was going about, I want to say 2007, I want to say it, like year 3 of my 2-year program at the county college. So I was mostly just slacking off because I didn't want to do anything other than work at the radio station. I took one class a semester, just say, okay, I'm still technically a student, but I still want to be on the radio. And this is before I got into podcasting. This is before I learned about internet radio, internet streaming, and all that stuff. I thought my ticket to my dream job is to keep making demos and tapes at the college station. So I was still doing that. And then I had a friend's band of mine come in the studio, and we interviewed them. They did an acoustic performance. I was like, oh, these songs are really catchy. And these songs are like, I like them. Like, when's your next album coming out? I would love to do it. And I would love to buy it. And they're like, we actually haven't done it yet. We don't have the money for a studio. Like, can you record our band? And I'm thinking, sure, why not? How hard can it be? And turns out it's really hard. And I jumped into the world of audio production headfirst into the deep end without learning how to swim. And the first couple of years was rocky. I mean, I just listened to this EP from this band that I met in 2007. I listened to it for the first time a couple days ago, and I was like, oh boy. It was hot garbage, but the songs were awesome, and the people who bought the album or bought the EP didn't give a shit. They were like, oh, this song's awesome. I'm dancing to it. And there's one song called Cocaine Smile, and you can guess, like, these guys were Motley Crue wannabes. Like,
Leather?
What?
Leather?
Oh yeah, leather jackets, leather pants. The basic 3 chords in their songs, and like the very simple drums that like AC/DC's been doing for 30 years. So like this, it's very simplistic musically, but the songs were rocking. The songs were fun, and the one song, to get the effect of like splitting a line of Coke on a mirror, we actually took powdered sugar into one of my metal mixing bowls and used my driver's license to, like, in front of a microphone to cut the line, and he just sniffed right in the microphone. That's how we simulated that. And I was like, it's such a simple, stupid effect, but when I first did it, I was like, oh yeah, I can totally do this audio engineering thing.
Yeah.
Like, totally ignorantly just assuming, like, how hard can it be? And how I got started was just, oh, there's a microphone there. I don't know what it's called. I don't know what the frequency response is. I don't know how it's made. Oh, just put it up there. Oh, there's another mic. Just put it here. Oh, there's a bass. Let's mic up the amp with this mic here. It was just, oh, there's a microphone. Let's do it. And eventually, of course, I got to learning of how these mics work, how the frequencies interact with one another, and my mixes have greatly improved since then. But how I got started was just, hey, let's just do it. If it sounds good, let's do it. You want to make your drums sound good? Cool. Let me just fuck with it. And that's all it is. That's how you learn anything these days. It's just messing with it, trial and error.
Yeah.
And these guys became my friends for, I want to say 10 years. So learning how to mix with these guys, learning how to record, learning how to produce better. I learned how to be a producer without being a musician. I'm not a trained musician. The best drums I can do are maybe medium difficulty on Rock Band, like, but I have what some would call a producer's ear. Like let's say if you come in and you play like a melody, a simple melody, I can hear that and I can add shit to it, but I can't make up that simple melody. I have to, but some people call it producer's ear. Some people call that musician's ear, whatever you want to call it.
When you say the shit you're adding to it, it's like sound effects, emphasis, or like playing
chords. Like I can add simple chords. So like if you say, oh, you're in the key of C, so if you're playing this and this, I can add an octave up a C chord here, and that'll do good, like something like that. Or I could just say, hey, you play da 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 da. Why don't you go an octave lower, bass, da 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 da, and just do that? And that's how I end up producing. That's how I produce a lot of records with this one band. And I know some people listening to us like, I'm a producer for 30 years. How the hell does this kid do it? Like, it's really just, if it sounds good, do it. Yeah. It's a very simple philosophy I have. Just if it sounds good, do it.
That's almost like you're taking a step off the cliff and you're just trusting that when you're falling, you'll eventually fly.
If a musician plays something and it sounds like shit, I'm like, no, that's not going to work here. Oh, I like this lead, and the guy's wailing away on his guitars. Like, that doesn't work here. Like, it may musically make sense. On paper, it might make sense, but it doesn't sound good to the ear. And that's the most important thing. Everyone who listens to an album is not going to listen to what key it's in or how the drum fills, like, musically are in time to something. They're like, does it sound good? Yeah, okay, cool, I'm going to listen to it. If it doesn't sound good, no, I'm going to throw it away. That is your customer. I mix and produce from the customer's perspective. I mix from the listener's perspective. Oh, you're tuned to drop D or whatever the heck guitar players do. Does it sound good? Yeah, it sounds cool. Let me mix it and mic the amp a certain way to make that tune sound awesome. That's my job as an engineer, and my job as a producer is to hear what you're playing, let me hear what you have, and maybe I can make suggestions of how to improve that to make it catchier. There was one song with one of Ori's old bands where we were playing a song and they were trying to figure out how to make a chorus work, like how to make like a verse work. And through the magic of herbal essences,
No way.
we put a lot of like crazy delays and reverbs on one of the guys' guitars. And I forget who threw it out, but one of us, I think it may have been me or Ori, threw out like, okay, the bass is doing this, and why don't you do this with this delay on this amp and this mic setting or whatever. And that's how we got the verse guitar settings. Like, it's really, honestly, like, I'm rambling here, but it's trial and error, guys.
Yeah.
It's all it is. You go to these $1 million studios, you go to these these producers who are worth billions of dollars, and they throw themselves at you like they're geniuses, and they're the reasons why Pink Floyd's albums went like quadruple platinum or whatever. It's really just trial and error. That's why I love George Martin so much, aka the fifth Beatle. Like, a lot of what the Beatles did back then was just trial and error and experimenting of how to invent how modern music's made. And I mean, I am a total shill for the Beatles of what they did musically, but I'm more of a shill of George Martin and the studios that they worked at back then, because they figured out ways to reinvent how music is made. And we still use those techniques with hardware, gear, plugins. We use those techniques today because of what the Beatles did in the studio sessions.
So how did you make the transfer from the radio station to your podcast, which was, what was the first podcast you had?
The very first podcast I did was something called the Mike and Hammy Show. Very original name. It was really just our first talk show on the college radio station was called The Highlight Reel, and totally stole it from Chris Jericho, by the way. And we were basically horrible ripoffs of Saturday Night Live. We always wrote skits. We tried to be as funny as we could. And the one thing that took off with the two people that listened to our show was this one guy did a brilliant Sergeant Hartman impression. So we always did Celebrity Jeopardy, which, again, total hack job here, guys. We did Celebrity Jeopardy almost every episode because it's the one thing that was funny to us. That's the one thing that was funny to callers. And Sergeant Hartman always was the star of the show. Like the one guy, who's the guy that did the Sean Connery impression? The name just left my head.
Norm Macdonald, was that him doing it? Oh, no, it wasn't. Oh, he did it once on The Comeback, but he wasn't the original guy.
The name just left my head. Like the guy who did your mom's box Trebek.
I know who you're talking about. The original Celebrity Jeopardy.
We had that guy. We had our Sean Connery and this guy in Steve's Sergeant Hartman impression, and eventually got old, and everyone went their separate ways. But I was really like into it. Like, I wanted to make it work. I'm like, yeah, this show sucks. Like, this is total garbage, but I want to make it work. So one of my best friends, Mike, stuck with me, and we formed our own show. It was just me and him. We had that moment like Howard Stern had in Private Parts, where we were like, if we're gonna do this, let's just talk about our lives. Like, let's not try to pretend like we're something we're not. Let's just talk about our personal lives. Hey, I'm dating a girl and I haven't gotten laid in 3 months. What the hell's the matter with that? Give me your calls. And we just did that, and it took off. We did it for 8 years almost. And
damn, on what platform were you guys doing this on?
Internet.
Yeah, just posting it.
I knew from day one when we first started doing internet radio, and this is when Sirius was just starting to pick up steam too, Sirius and XM before they merged. Podcasting is I've been saying since day one that podcasting is the future, and now it's finally starting to take off with these amazing devices that we all carry in our pockets all day. Nothing beats the convenience of, there's a new podcast, download, and you can stream Bluetooth in your car. It's complete
awesome.
On-demand streaming. I'm like, this is going to be the new standard. Nothing's ever going to compete with this. And day one, we were just talking about our personal lives, streaming online, posting on demand on SoundCloud immediately after the show. Hey, you like us? Check out our SoundCloud profile. Oh, you like us? Check out on iTunes. Google Play now, just recently, a couple of years ago, added podcasts to their Google Play store.
Right.
So we had a couple name changes from the Mike and Hammy show. We renamed ourselves, rebranded a couple of times. And we disbanded because, and it's just one thing that everyone eventually, every partner, every working relationship deals with, and that's you guys change mentally. And I was still at the mental state of, hey, let's be like, I don't want to say like the frat boy stage. I don't want to say like, oh, like
Party kind of stage.
I was still at this stage where, you know, I can watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia or South Park and still laugh my ass off at that. And to this day,
they're funny shows.
If people want to make me belly laugh, I watch that. But Mike grew separately. He was getting a little more serious with with what he found funny and what he found, because he's an aspiring stand-up comic too. And politically, you know, I definitely don't want to get into the political discussion here, but he leaned more left than I do, and I leaned definitely more right than he did. And through that, when we talked about a story where we could just like, you know, screw the political angle, let's just make fun of the stupidness of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was one story where a woman drove her truck into Walmart because, you know, screw Obama or something like that. Some stupid story.
Jesus, yeah.
And before we saw that story, we would just be like, okay, we are going to destroy this woman and just call her an idiot. Because
she's obviously some kind of nut job.
But it turned into a thing where I threw out an obvious joke at the Democrats' expense. He started taking it as, okay, I'm really attacking the Democrats on this. And then it turned into serious tension. And
on the show,
yeah, on the air, and off the air too. Like when we took our breaks and when we stopped taping, it used to be, okay, that was great. Let's retape this. Let's do it this way. Let's try that again, but go this way. Or, dude, that line was amazing. To, yeah, that was okay. You want to keep going? And at that point, I was like, it's done.
Yeah.
We had a good 8-year run, and that was really heartbreaking, honestly. Like, we're still friends. We still do a podcast today now, but we do not go anywhere near what we used to go to. Now we just focus on pro wrestling because a common bond between us is we love pro wrestling, and that's what we do now. We don't go back to what we used to do, but we love pro wrestling and we love talking about it. So here we are, pro wrestling.
Oh, wow, it brings everybody together. Isn't Donald Trump like the WWE champion or something?
He's the greatest heel of all time.
He's
the greatest. How can someone put on that kind of an act and put that kind of an angle together and become the president of the United States? Like, you can't make this up. And it's to the point where even Matt and Trey of South Park someone asked him, hey, are you guys going to continue to make fun of Trump every week? We can't top what he's already been doing. Like, that's when I knew something was really serious with this. Like, when Matt and Trey are like, dude, like, even we can't top this shit. Like, anyone, no matter where you lean, you gotta look at that and be like, oh, maybe they have a point when South Park can even make fun of them. But yeah, Trump is the greatest heel in the history of life. How someone can say the things he says and generate that kind of reaction, that Vince McMahon is drooling at this. Like, sure. I wish my heels can get as much heat as Trump gets. But I to get through life these days, I think of everything as a pro wrestling angle. Like, anytime someone says something ridiculous, I'm like, oh, I can just hear like the boos and the cheers from this person, and like, oh, I wish someone would just come in and just whack him with a chair. Like that. It's like everything devolves to pro wrestling in my book now.
Just imagining those crowd reactions to your life.
Oh, everything would crickets would be the reaction to my life. Crickets, nothing.
Gotcha. So, between working on the show with your friend who now you're working, is the only podcast you're doing now about pro wrestling?
That is the only thing I am actively doing now. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I still freelance audio production. I still am working at Sirius, and every Wednesday we broadcast live on YouTube. I'm in the process of moving, so we're probably going to take a couple weeks to just regroup and while I get settled in my new place. But we go live every Wednesday night. video format, and that's another thing that I noticed. Video is absolutely king over audio. I mean, I'm an audio guy. I've worked with audio and music and bands. Video is the way to go.
Right.
And people want to watch video because they want to be stimulated through their ears and their eyes. They want to see you. And not to say that no one wants to see this beautiful face on YouTube every Wednesday, but they see us talking, they see us interacting, they see our genuine facial reactions, and they see the clips that because I crop out a section of my screen and I use that to play whatever video or visual clip that we're talking about, so people can say, oh, that's what they're talking about, and you can just follow us on the show. I learned how to video edit. I learned how to operate using codecs, and I learned like After Effects, just the basic enough to make an intro. And through the eyes of YouTube, like you can learn anything in the world on YouTube.
It's amazing.
You can learn anything. There's some little kid out there that knows more than you do, and you learn from them. I learned how to parallel compress drums through a 10-year-old Chinese kid in, I want to say, somewhere not in America, but some 10-year-old Chinese kid showed me how to parallel compress drums a little more than 8 years ago. And I'll never forget that. I'm like, why do I want to go back to school? Why do I still want to do this? Oh, because you need that piece of paper to tell the world that you know something.
Fucking bullshit, man. Felt the same way after college, let me tell you. But first of all, yes to the 10-year-old foreign kids on the other side of the world being so much better than you at everything. I mean, you go on, I remember I was trying to learn some certain guitar song, and you're seeing freaking kids half my age shredding and just destroying. You're like,
I quit life. I quit life.
What the hell?
Like, I'm trying to learn how to play a guitar now. I'm trying to figure out the chords. I mean, I have Trump fingers. Like, I have really short fingers, so it's tough for me. If I'm meant to play anything, I'm meant to play a bass, but I don't have a bass, so I want to learn a guitar. And I'm trying to figure out the chords, figure out something out. And just when I think I finally got something, I look on YouTube and there's a kid just going, like, you're 5. You're like, I can still see you're still in diapers. Like, how are you doing this? I quit life. I just don't want to do this anymore.
It hurts. I know the feeling. I have a question, though. So you've seen us. We've been here for like 45 minutes or so. And you as a veteran podcaster, I'm sure you have maybe some tips you could pass along our way, maybe give us some ideas besides going to video, which we hopefully plan to do.
Yeah. I don't want to give you guys advice. I mean, but if anyone wants to get started podcasting, if anyone wants
tell
to
us about mistakes you've made. How about that?
Yeah, let us learn
that we
from
could
you.
avoid.
Mistake number 1, assuming that your shit is good. That, like, I thought when I first started out mixing, I thought my mixes were the shit. And then I put an A and B next to something else that someone else in a home studio did, and I'm like, oh my God, I am garbage compared to this. And the greatest mistake anyone could ever make is assuming that their shit doesn't stink. And that's when you get an ego. That's when you get an attitude about yourselves. That's when you burn the bridges with anyone that's ever going to collaborate with you. Assuming that your stuff is the best thing since Howard Stern, you're not. So that is, if you can get over your own self and your own ego, you have massive amounts of potential. Assuming that you only have one outlet, maximize your reach. If you stream only on YouTube, and you're not able to simulcast on a Facebook page, broadcast live on YouTube, because that's when you get more accurate information. That's where you get more monetization. Facebook doesn't have monetization yet for live video. Go to YouTube and post a video on Facebook. Maximize your reach. Do anything and all. If a place hosts a podcast, go to it. Even if it's somewhere where you're like, really? Does it really? Maybe get us like one new listener. That one new listener can have 20 different friends that say, hey, I'm sharing this Stitcher link. No one uses Stitcher anymore, but I can share this one Stitcher link, and all their friends will now listen to you and discover you through there. Those are the 2 biggest pieces of advice I have for anyone wanting to get involved with podcasting. And aside from the obvious, buy good gear, get a good sound, and make sure you're in an environment where you're not, bouncing off the walls and like your sound's not good. The most important thing, though, is to just know that you suck, know that you are not good, and strive to always get better. Even when, to this day, when Mike and I and our other host, John, when we host a show and when we do a show and we belly laugh the whole time and I know it was a good show. Even when I listen back to it, I always notice something that I did. I notice something Mike did. I know something John did. Even just something little, like you see me, even though I'm typing and like planning a show, producing a show as we're live, I'm typing notes to Mike, I'm typing notes to John, and I'm, focused on the stream, make sure the stream is online. Every episode, I look at something that I do. Always try to improve a tiny little thing, even if it's something as simple as not smiling. Even something, if you're on video, especially if you look like you're about to yawn, look off camera, get off camera, yawn, and come back. Like something so little, because a listener can look at you yawning, especially since we go live at like 11 o'clock at night. Sometimes we're all tired. We all got a job to go to in the morning. Once in a while, I'll yawn. And then I look at that like, oh, if I'm a listener and this guy's yawning on his own show, what the fuck is that? Like, why should I continue when this guy's yawning on his own show? And just get good at basic editing. Just get Adobe Cloud. The Adobe Audition Cloud is $20 a month. You have no excuse to not get an extremely amazing piece of software. Learn Adobe Audition, learn basics of editing, and just learn how to better improve yourself. And if you want to get involved with home studios, it's same situation applies. Gear doesn't matter. That's one thing I have told any person who has ever asked me about audio production. Gear doesn't matter. If you have a $1 million studio with racks upon racks of vintage compressors, gear, EQs, and all that, sure, you have the tools, but your ear is the most important thing in the world. Your ear is what's going to determine whether it sounds good or it doesn't sound good. And also, working with quality musicians. If a musician plays like shit, the microphones don't lie. If a musician plays like shit, it's going to be recorded as shit, and your final product's going to be shit.
Chris has recorded me before, and we found out it sounds like shit.
But yeah, the biggest piece of advice I have for anyone is to just not get too far ahead of themselves, because that's just going to destroy your career before it even has the potential to take off.
Thank you.
That's some really great advice. Yeah. And it sounds like we have a running theme of, keeping in a student mindset. And if you think you're like shit, there's always room to improve. There's always room to grow. And, like you were saying, be a little bit better every time, learn from your mistakes. And that's so important in the evolution of, you were in radio and then you're going into podcasting. You have now a video blog. I mean, can I call it that?
You could call it that. I mean, I'm starting to get a lot of more video going on my personal channel, YouTube/Brainsuit Media, for a cheap plug. I'm trying to get a couple things going on that. I'm in the process of finalizing a lot of videos, but again, I got to go where the money is. I got to give my day job the priority, and also it's a day job that I really legit love. So I kind of put a lot of things on the back burner, and that's, if I want to add one more piece of advice, stick to a schedule. Maintain a schedule, prioritize what you want to get released. If you're a podcast, you need to have a new episode out every week regardless. Even if it's a best of, even if it's a pre-taped something, have new content on a schedule. And
that way your listeners as well are always right on there with you.
And you learn how to use social media. Even if you hate Twitter and Facebook, I despise social media, because I think like the scum of the earth lives on social media these days, but they're the people that are going to share your show. They're the people that are going to get the word out there for you.
So the evolution of podcasting, video blogging, do you think there's going to be a next step in it? And I'm specifically speaking about Microsoft's HoloLens or the Google Glasses. I'm not sure if you've dabbled with it at all, but the projection of video into whatever you're looking at, and you're just wearing glasses. Like, I'm looking at this white wall, and now the video that I was watching on YouTube on my laptop is now on the wall where I can just stare off into space.
The Google Glasses are the greatest invention of people wanting to get punched in the face. Like, if I see someone looking at me with the Google Glasses, I'm going to be like, if that's filming, like, I will rip it off your face and smash it. I try as hard as I can not to be that guy that takes photos of every place where I'm at, because I just don't. Like, if you want to see if you want to go down to Lower Manhattan and look at the 9/11 memorial, go there. Take photos of the memorial. Take photos of the Trade Center. Take photos of yourself and save them for your memories. I despise Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat. I barely use my Instagram. And if I use Instagram, it's food that I've made. Like, I'm that guy that takes photos of their food.
Everybody's
foodie.
proud of what they cook
Like,
now. Yeah, it's hard not to be.
Yeah, and
You
like
look at your plate.
I cooked for nearly 8 years before I got involved with before I even was before I got my first media job. Like all through chasing the dream of working at Sirius, I was working in restaurants here and there. So like I'm a big foodie. Like I love watching Food Network and trying out new recipes. So I'm that guy. If I take photos of anything, I take photos of my food, and my cat. So, but who
Nice.
doesn't like photos of cats?
It's
But
so hard not to take photos of your cat.
But
know
I
it
see
well.
people. There are two kinds of people. There are people who go to concerts and enjoy the concert, and there are people who are on their phones Snapchatting the whole thing.
Seems like that's the majority.
I fucking hate the people who Snapchat concerts. If you're going there, like a friend of mine went to see Roger Waters at Prudential Center just
Right.
like a week or two ago, and he Snapchatted the whole concert. I saw an entire Roger Waters concert on my friend's Snapchat and Instagram profile.
I have to say, I think that's like the most embarrassing thing. Like you're spending, especially Roger Waters, had it to be $100+
least.
ticket. You're sitting at the show, amazing production, and you're filming the whole fucking thing, watching it through your phone. I mean, you're wasting.
I
want
to say that, but then again, the one and only time I ever saw Paul McCartney, I filmed a couple of songs. But again, like this is probably the one and only time I'm ever going to see a Beatle play live,
Right.
and I tried my best not to, but a couple of songs I was like, all right, he's playing Live and Let Die. All right, I need to film this. But for the most part, in general, if you go to a place, just enjoy it. I don't
Enjoy
like
it.
people who just take photos of stuff and like, oh God, need to Instagram this. No, just enjoy life.
As well as fireworks. I think fireworks are a huge thing. Everyone loves to film them, but nobody goes back and watches those videos.
Right. The only fireworks footage I ever really want to watch is people who have drones now.
Yes.
I love those things. I love drones. They're so
Hal's got
expensive and
one.
I'll never buy one, but they're so awesome. My girlfriend and I were watching this year's fireworks, and there were like 5 or 6 drones above us just flying around getting footage of the audience and the fireworks. And then I go on YouTube and I see these beautifully edited videos of firework displays, and that's what separates the truly creative people from people who just Snapchat and post shit.
Right.
Like these people went out of their way to capture the footage on their drones of people watching the fireworks, and they put music behind it, nicely edited. I'm like, I'm watching something that everyone's posted for years, but I'm watching your video because it looks better than everyone else's. So I don't know. I'm basically just jealous I don't have a drone, and I really want a drone.
That's fair enough. I mean, the drone that I have is a cheap one. It's like $500. I would love to have
Yeah, just $500.
Just
I
cheap,
just
yeah,
had
no.
laying around to spend
Listen,
on a
when
drone.
you talk about my drone, the Parrot, and then you look at something like the DJI, and it's $3,000. There's a huge difference in production value. Like the very video content that it records is just so phenomenal. Like the video from the Parrot, you can hear like the noise of the propellers, but on like the DJI one, it's like, what the fuck? It's so amazing. And of course, the drone itself is like some futuristic thing where like it has its legs pointing down almost like a pyramid, and then once it's in the air, the legs go up, and then it's an upside down pyramid, and you're like, what is happening? Like, oh my God, it's Transformer.
That's
cool
like,
shit.
Yeah, you got all of a sudden like the DJI Optimus Prime coming out soon. But like my girlfriend, she's a amateur photographer, and I got her a basic DSLR for Christmas last year, and to which you're welcome. But she was taking photos of a drum set I had hooked up in my now former home studio because I'm moving. She took a couple photos of a drum set, and she was like, "Oh, the light is just not right. Even if I set the ISO up this much, it's just like blah blah blah." And she was going on and on about all these camera stands. I'm like, "How hard can it be? Just take a photo." Oh boy, again.
Oh, boy.
Now I look into it like, oh, there's a reason why this camera costs more than my house. Like, there's a reason why I have to pay 5 months rent to buy this camera because it's fucking amazing. And you can take. Technology these days is just amazing. Not to go completely make a left turn, but technology these days, like we're sitting in an office right now talking into these microphones, and this podcast is going to be posted up online for the whole world to listen to. Like, this is the greatest time of life to live, and tomorrow's going to be the best time ever to live. And 10 years from now, that's going to be the best time to live. Technology these days has enabled, honestly, nobodies like me to be able to produce stuff that is extremely high quality and something that you could only dream of chasing 20 years ago. Like, look at 20 years ago, look at the mid-90s. We didn't have phones, we didn't have drones, we didn't have anything. And if you wanted a cinema quality product, you had to hire a cinema company to do it for you. Now you can have your drone. I can go out and spend my next month's rent on a DJI drone, and I can create masterpiece videography. And technology these days has enabled people to be able to do amazing things, but it's also enabled people who shouldn't be involved in, let's say, the music industry or the video industry to be able to create a hit like that. The Cash Me Outside Girl is now like the #1 song on iTunes. And I don't know what your copyright policy is, but like in your spare time, play These Hoes on your system by Bad Barbie, I think her name is. My goodness.
That's the 13-year-old chick.
That's the Cash Me Outside Girl.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But the technology, there's an amazing documentary called Sound City. I don't know if you guys ever saw that.
No.
Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, made it about the old Sound City recording studio, which is where like every big band in the 70s, like Fleetwood Mac recorded their 2 albums there. Guns N' Roses recorded Appetite there, I think, and Metallica recorded, not their newest album, the one before that.
Magnetic?
Yeah, they recorded it there. And you look at the discography of this studio, and you're like, look how many fucking amazing albums were made here. And it's all analog. It's all no computers, nothing. You know exactly what you're getting into when you go there. And there's a very important message in there that what someone says. And the digital age of technology, anyone could buy an interface. It's $800. You could spend $2,000 and you can have a professional studio quality sound in anything you do. And that's enabled a lot of people who have talent to excel in the music industry, but it's also at the cost of all these studios going out of business. And it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, I love the fact that I can be cost-effective and be able to produce amazing sounding music, but at the same time, the studios where the only places where you can go to get these sounds, they're now going out of business, and all these amazing talented people are losing their jobs. So there's a lot of good things about today, and there's a lot of bad things about today. So, I mean, all right, I'll get off my high horse about that, but
well, we hope that with the advent of all these new technologies, that maybe some of those talented people do keep their jobs, just in the sense of like, if you are that skilled, I hope that you continue doing what you love, and help other people and teach other people, like you've taken the time to come on our show and help us take an insight into the industry as a whole, and we're going to learn from this no matter what.
Well, if you learn from me, like you have very low standards of education, but
yeah, we do. No, we're just fucking around. But we did really appreciate having you on our show.
This was
today,
fun,
Chris. This was awesome.
And we would love for you to add whatever plugs you want right now, and let our audience be able to contact you in any way possible.
Well, you can follow me Facebook and Twitter, even though I shit on it a couple of minutes ago. Facebook and Twitter, Brainstew Media. That's STU because I want to be cool and have not STEW, but STU because Motley Crue, because asshole here. Brainstew Media, and my personal Twitter is @HamsGruber.
Amazing. So you've seen the Die Hard franchise at least, right?
Well, also like last name Hamill, the Hamsgruber. All right, this will be clever. It was one of those things where it's so funny that it's a throwaway line. Like I'll just call myself Hamsgruber, and everyone laughed at the name. I'm like, really? That I think so hard to think of a clever joke, right, and like think of setup, punchline. And it bombs. But something like stupid as Hamsgruber kicks off, and now the listeners of the shows I work on at Sirius are like, oh my God, this is the greatest name ever. All right, I'll run with it.
Yeah, roll.
So yeah, @Brainstew Media and @Hamsgruber.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Well, guys, thank you for joining us for another episode on Disconnection Podcast, where we aim to inform, inspire, and close the disconnections in your life. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us today. Chris Hammill, thank you so much, and delivering a unique perspective on a range of topics. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on iTunes and YouTube. My name is Kyle.
I've been Ben.
And we'll catch you on the next episode of Disconnection.